All right. Welcome and thanks for joining us today on a sales leadership webinar, Outperform Your Competition in the Field. I'm Kirti and I work on the marketing team for Zoho Crm. Before I introduce our speaker, I just want to take care of a few housekeeping items. So please take a moment and confirm through the comment box if you can hear my voice and if you can view the screen. I'll give you a moment to let me know on this. Can you confirm through the comment box mentioned in the control panel? Thanks for confirming. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to type them in the comment box on your screen. And for any questions that aren't answered throughout the presentation, we'll have the Q&A at the end of the webinar. We are also recording the webinar and we'll be sending out a link to the recording version for your reference. Okay, now that we have taken care of that, let's get started. As the host of the Sales Leadership webinar, I want to give you a bit more information about Zoho. Zoho has been in business for over 20 years, since 1996, and has grown from a bootstrap startup to a profitable organization that serves over 35 million customers worldwide. Our mission is to provide quality products that businesses trust to run their entire organization, from HR and finance to sales, marketing, and support departments. Zoho serves businesses of all sizes, from the startup community to enterprise level organizations. Talking about Zoho CRM is one of the leading CRM solutions on the market. It automates your daily sales activities, customizes the sales process, quickly converts your prospects into customers, and create dynamic reports and dashboards to monitor your business performance. Attendees, I just wanted to know if you are able to, see the slides. Can you just confirm in the comment box? Okay, awesome. Thanks for confirming. So we are really excited to start this webinar and we hope that you find the information helpful. Our speaker today is Matthew Smith, CEO of Map My Customers. Map My Customers offers sales productivity platform for field teams where it allows you to easily map and share your customers. Matthew is basically an engineering graduate and product focused background. I had some interesting conversations with Matthew about how Map My Customers evolved. It is because of his father, who is a veteran sales representative. On a Thanksgiving day, he asked if Matthew could build an application for him to easily locate customers. He did build the application for his dad, and he just loved it, and also urged him to put the app in the iOS store, and it began to get downloads. This is how the product idea originated. Now, one fact I would like to share with you people. We nail the art of sales when we start selling to a person who has zero knowledge about a product, educate them in a simple language, and convince them to buy a product. I think this is what Matthew did exactly of convincing his dad. So this is one of the major reasons of approaching Matthew to present in a sales leadership webinar to share about his practical views on increasing the productivity in field sales reps. So now here comes the surprise goodies. You can download the value-added Hangout materials in the GoToWebinar control panel on your screen. So these are guides to learn the tips and tricks in the art of selling. So do download the handouts and read it at your convenience. Don't miss it. Now, before moving on to today's agenda, I have got something interesting for you. Throughout the presentation today, please feel free to share a tweet about the content or things you find it interesting. We'll be selecting 5 of the best tweets and send them 16 email templates that you will ever need to hook your customers. Don't forget to tag us at Zoho CRM and use hashtag #SmarterSalesLeaders. I repeat, Please do post some of the interesting content during the session using hashtag Smarter Sales Leaders and tag us at Zoho CRM. Now I'll go ahead and let Mr. Matthew take over from here and help us identify the silver bullet to solve any of the problems we are facing on field sales reps. Over to you, Matthew.
Thank you very much for the introduction there, Kirti, and a big thanks to Zoho for hosting me this afternoon. We've got a lot to talk about, and I'd love to be able to get started. So the agenda we have in front of us today, we're going to be chatting about how to outperform the field. And I wanted to split it up into three main sections. The first of which is how to enable your field reps as their manager. The second of which is how to be more productive in the field as a rep. And thirdly, how to outperform the field as a rep. And three ways to do that, three very specific actionable ways to outperform the field. So as a manager out in the field of, 1, 2, 3, or even 10 different teams of reps spread across the country or even across the world, how can you best enable your workforce? The first thing that we like to tell people about is territory visualization. And, put yourself in the shoes of the rep. When reps are being introduced to their territory, they want to know who is in their territory, where they should focus their time, how do they work a territory as efficiently as possible. And that goes back to really the root problem behind what Matt My Customers was trying to solve, which was how do you spend your time efficiently in the field? And everybody's heard about the star salesman problem. The sales rep who goes out to the field and picks a city, attacks and blitzes the city, skipping across town back and forth, left and right, north and south, west and east, and isn't very efficient with their time. When they could be optimizing their routes, they could be planning out their days or weeks ahead of time, and they could be a bit smarter with the way that they're going about their job. So we don't want you guys to be out there floundering around as a star salesperson. We want you to be the effective and efficient and productive salesperson. And a quote that I like to use is actually from famous businessman and salesperson, of which many of you will already know of, Dale Carnegie. And when asked what one of the keys to success in business was, Dale Carnegie said, knowing how much time to spend with each customer. And that rings truer now more than ever in 2018. Spending too much time with a customer who's too maybe not much of a fit for you over the long run, and not spending enough time with your most important clients is a really big problem. And it's something that you need to be really good at. And it's something that the best reps and best managers are very good at. Secondly, use the right tools. CRMs are a great place to start and can get you structured, and Zoho is a great one to use at that. But field sales reps need very specific needs. They need tools like optimized routing. They need tools like territory management. They need to be able to really perform advanced geo queries on their data to find the leads they actually need to go see. And even tools like our own Map My Customers can help sales teams drop onboarding times from 6 months to 6 weeks, and can help you transfer your territories over so you can hit the ground running as a new rep. So think about how much something like this would improve your sales if you gave your reps the right tools. Thirdly, rep accountability. Make your expectations clear as a leader. Set specific and achievable goals, reward your team when they hit their goals, and hold them accountable when they don't. Sales is a results-driven profession. We just had a talk yesterday with our inside team and our sales director about how some of our reps felt like they were on autopilot and weren't hitting their goals. So, make sure your reps understand the accounts they're working with, and make sure they aren't just going through the motions. If there's something that's truer than anything else in sales, it's that sales is very hard and it's not for everyone, especially the faint of heart. So keep in mind that it's a results-driven profession, and you need to be held accountable. Make yourself accountable as well. It's best to lead by example, and everyone has to be on an even playing field, and you need to show your team that you're not above the law. A motivated team is a productive team. Have the emotional intelligence to know when your reps need an extra motivational push. Work on understanding what your reps need from you. There's a great book on this that I recently read called On Emotional Intelligence from the Harvard Business Review. I highly recommend it. You can pick it up at any bookstore or airport, and it's like $20. It's a fantastic read. Talks about what separates leaders, the best leaders, from the okay and mediocre leaders. And then how are you tracking your team's progress, right? KPIs, which KPIs are you tracking? Standardize your metrics and be transparent with your team about how you're grading them. This way, everybody's on the same page and nobody's confused. Auto check-ins are a great way to do this. It gives you information about how your team is moving. Tools out there that are designed for field reps like Map My Customers can help make this easier. And it also tells you whether or not your reps are actually visiting their accounts and not just telling you that they're going to those accounts. So at this point, after this first section and how to become a better field sales manager and how to manage your team, I'd like to pull a question to the audience here, and give me 1 sec to do that. We'll give everybody about 60 seconds to respond to this question. And let us know if everybody can see the poll. Okay, it looks like we've got all the results here. It's definitely very heartwarming to hear that everyone is using, overwhelming majority of folks are using CRM. Next up, we've got Excel and spreadsheets, and 11% of us are using something else. So curious to hear what that might be. And we'll go ahead and move along here to our next section, which is going to be focused on productivity out in the field as a rep. So how do you become more productive in the field as an individual rep? Well, one way to go about this is to consider things, a couple things before you go and actually get out in front of someone in the field and pitch them. What's happening at the other end of the conversation? The average decision maker gets 5 or more unsolicited calls every day. They're already behind on a lot of their own work. And so you need to be thinking about this before you actually go and talk to them. You cannot earn the right to go and talk to somebody without understanding their business very clearly and providing them some sort of value. Number 2, why do they need to buy your product or service? Very obvious if you're in sales. People don't set out to buy a product. They want to achieve something, right? And this goes back to sales being results oriented. It's results oriented for both the salesperson and the person you're selling to. They're trying to achieve something with this, right? So it could be a business improvement, keeping up with competition, solving a specific other operational problem. Stop talking about how great you are and start finding fits and fixing problems. You want to solve a problem and not be the problem. Second thing is splitting your market into distinct segments and catering your pitch to those segments. You have to talk to customers in their language. So if you're talking to a VP, or you're talking to a CRM admin, or you're talking to an operations person, you speak different languages to all those 3 people, the same way you speak different languages to folks in different industries and folks at different parts of your pipeline. Sales is 90% process and 10% art form, and it's that 10% art form that separates the best salespeople from everybody else. So the 3 different segments that we like to split customers up into are folks who are actively looking, who are inbound most of the time, folks who have engaged with you, and we kind of like to call these folks hybrid, and then those who haven't heard from you at all. So those would be your cold calls, your outbound, your direct sales. In the first group, those who are actively looking, they've already done their research, they've identified the need, they know that they need something like this. They've probably even looked at your competitors. Approach them in a way that will facilitate their thinking. This is a great time to talk about your product. And if it's a bigger deal, they definitely know about all your competition. And there are tools out there like Capterra and G2 Crowd that can show you actually when your prospects are looking at other competitors, And you shouldn't be surprised to see and hear that almost all companies of any size whatsoever are looking at all of their different options, because now more than ever, software is as undifferentiated as possible. And what's going to make you stand out? That's something you should be asking yourself every day. How am I going to be better? Is it going to be my service? Is it going to be my product? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? So ask yourselves these questions. But don't be afraid to show your competition and talk about your competition to a bigger customer, because they already know about it. So you might as well differentiate yourself. And you want them to hear it from you rather than your competitors, because your competitors are definitely not going to say good things about you. The second category, those folks who have engaged with you, those hybrid folks. This group didn't reach out to you, but they've engaged with something in some way. A webinar, site traffic, like a visit, downloaded some content that you posted. So they know about you and have heard of your company. Cater your approach to those folks with that in mind. And on the other end of the spectrum, we've got the cold calls, those folks who've never heard of you, who might not even want to hear from you, the direct sales. They probably don't know who you are. The key here, just stick out, right? So hopefully you're reaching out because they have something in common with some of your accounts. If you have some customers already, a good approach is going to be make a list of your top customers, make then a list of 10 competitors to those top customers, and then do some actual business research and find contacts at those companies and start calling those people. Those are always going to be your best bets. You can talk about customers who've had success in the industry that they're already in, who use your platform, and you can name drop. It proves credibility for you and your product, and it drives a lot of value, honestly, and it works very well. Understanding your territory better than your competition. The last way to be more productive as a sales rep. The first thing here is really quite simple. Just leverage the right technology, right? Visualizing your territory provides you with insights that a list simply cannot. It gives you even access to all those quick sales questions that you have in your head throughout the day, as almost any rep does. You can ask yourself, for example, on our platform, you can visualize all your territory and say, show me everyone within 10 minutes of Brooklyn that I haven't seen in 2 months, who sells this new product we just released that I could see on a Tuesday morning. You can run that query in seconds. If you are maybe in a tool that doesn't do that, then you might not be able to answer that question at all. Secondly, focus on your ideal customers and weed out the rest. Not every prospect is created equal, and you shouldn't spend an equal amount of time on each. This goes back to the Dale Carnegie quote. You need to learn to identify a bad fit and move on. Spend your time where it is most valuable, with your biggest customers or your best fit customers, so you don't have to waste time chasing bad deals. This is the #1 killer for field reps, whether they're inside or outside. It's not knowing where to spend their time. And honestly, if there's one thing that you should go back and think about, it's ask yourself in the mirror, am I spending enough time with the right customers? Am I spending too much time with the wrong customers? Third, simple and clear-cut, optimize your routes. If you're trying to cover your territory and understand everything you possibly can, you cannot be wasting time behind the wheel. This goes back to the star salesman thing I was talking about at the beginning of the webinar. You don't want to be hopping and skipping around town and not efficiently planning out your day or your week. You can and have to be productive out in the field to have a chance at hitting your quota and being the best rep possible. Do a favor for yourself. You're going to have more time at home at the end of the day. You're going to feel great about yourself because you're being productive, and you're honestly just going to be an all-around better sales rep. So the goal here is to increase face time with customers, make sure your routes are optimized. So that's the end of the next section of how to be productive out in the field as a rep. I'd like to take one more poll here from the audience on what your biggest challenges out in the field are. So I'm going to launch the poll right now. All right, looks like we've got the results here, and it's almost a neck and neck race between prospecting and keeping track of everything. Two of the very most top priorities for any salesperson out in the field. And it seems almost like nowadays we have more technology than ever, and we can't keep track of everything. I feel that every day myself, and so this becomes even more pertinent. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is how to outperform. 3 ways to outperform the field very specifically. The first is take a data-driven approach. As a rep or as a manager, it doesn't matter what you are, you need to understand the revenue engineering. You need to understand what you need to do to hit your number, because if you as a manager, for example, if you don't understand what's going on, how can your reps understand what's going on? How can you coach your reps to do better? And as a rep, how can you know what your individual goals have to be every day, every week, every month, and every quarter if you haven't run the numbers? So it's easy to have, analysis paralysis, as they like to say, but there are some key metrics that almost any sales rep in the field needs to be able to track. And I'll give you a few of those right now that are a good place to start. The first is customer check-ins. It's super important to be able to track check-in types as well, because not every interaction carries the same weight. So an in-person, visit is going to be obviously much more valuable than a call, is going to be much more valuable than an email. And you need to meet the person where they are. So not every check-in must be a visit. So you might not want to call someone 5 times in 5 minutes, the same way you might not want to visit someone, every single week. So you need to think about the cadence, and you need to think about the type of interaction. And this is where some technology can help as well. Think about the average deal cycle. How long is every single deal for you on average, right? So with a smaller sale, it might be 30 days. With a mid-sized company selling, average size deals, it might be it might be 60, 90 days. And with those enterprise customers, it might be even a year or more. So it's very important to understand, what do you need to do? What do your goals need to be every single day, every single week to be able to hit your goals? And, deal cycle is going to factor a lot into that. The bigger the deal, the more you're probably going to need to visit the person, the more you're going to need to differentiate yourself to close the deal. Conversion waterfall from stage to stage. So what this means is essentially, if you've got your customer journey mapped out, how many people drop off at each stage in the actual funnel. So for us at My Customers, we sort of have a few funnels. We use a prospecting funnel and an opportunities funnel and a growth funnel. And in each one, we're checking the conversion rate from stage to stage to stage to understand, okay, where are our bottlenecks? This is a great tool for field managers because they can understand where their reps might need help. So they might understand that their reps are, dropping a lot of leads off in SQL2 in the beginning part of their prospecting funnel, and say, hey, Josh, you need to really pick it up over here. The leads aren't converting after you demo them, or the leads aren't converting after you go visit them for the 3rd time. You can identify certain bottlenecks in your pipelines very easily if you have the numbers in front of you. Demo to opportunity percentage. So how many folks are actually converting to an opportunity? And it doesn't have to be demo. It could be, any other metric that you want, any other kind of activity that you want. But it's important to understand how many qualified opportunities that can actually close and have a realistic shot of closing within a couple of months are you getting on the board? Because at the end of the day, I think a lot of sales reps are just very not honest with themselves. They like to keep a ton of deals in their pipelines and feel good about that. But at the end of the day, you want a short, finite list that you can actually remember. Because even in today's world of so many different pieces of technology you can use, you need to actually be able to focus your time. And this goes back to everything we were talking about. It's so much better to have a short list of leads to keep in mind and have a more methodical and bespoke approach with in terms of your sales than it is to have 100 different opportunities on the board, and you are going every which way, touching them, every couple of weeks instead of maybe, in the right cadence that you actually do need to, which could even be every single day. Be an expert in your field. So this goes back to thought leadership, which is, obviously what a lot of you are doing on this call today. You want to get better. You want to learn the cutting edge of your field. You need to establish yourself as someone who has a ton of knowledge and expertise in your industry. You need to produce content and build trust at a distance. When someone's working with you, they're much more accepting of working with you if you look like someone who's going to be providing value, whether or not you do business together, right? So making them feel like their time is valued and that they're getting something for meeting with you is important, and not just wasting their time. So when you're working deals of a certain size, you will get Googled by the prospect. They will try to understand you, and they want to vet you and see who they're going to be working with. If you show up as an expert in their search, you've done half of the work right there. Secondly, attend industry events and make industry connections. You need to be networking all the time. And it sounds old school to a lot of folks, and even for folks from an engineering background like myself, it can seem even daunting, but it works. We just surveyed our own user base, and more than 2/3 of them say that their main actual tactic to getting connections and getting prospects is through different industry events and networking opportunities. So it's a way to establish expertise and show that you're in it for the long haul. These are actually very valuable events. Do your research and have thoughts to contribute to the industry as a leader, right? So this goes back to creating content. You have to know who you're talking about to produce content that's worth people's time. So spend time every single week learning. Engage with thought leaders without trying to sell them, and simply try to learn and absorb as much info as you can. Lastly, be a value add. You're a salesperson. That's supposed to mean something. You should be providing information and insights that your prospects can't get anywhere else. You need to present a solution. Be thoughtful about what that solution is. You can try out the consultative or challenger approach to selling, because nowadays you'd be hard pressed to find the transactional sales style working. We're not selling ice cream makers out of our trunk anymore. We need to be consultants, and we need to challenge folks with the way that they're doing things to help their business. Because ultimately, if you're not helping someone, you might be hurting them. Anyone can go on your website and learn about your product and find pricing. So be the person who makes the fit happen. You need to create a fit and mold your solution into their business. This requires you to really genuinely understand their business workflow and their needs. So take the time and listen and learn. So with that, I want to pull a third and final question to the audience. And so we'll give you guys 60 seconds to respond to this one, and I'll be launching it right now. Alrighty, so the poll is now closed, and time to share the results. Looks like most folks on the webinar today were looking for tips and tricks to improve their sales. Well, you were in the perfect spot to do that. However, it looks like 11% of us were lost and thought this was Spanish class. And then learning more about the topic, number 2. It's always good to learn more about the topic. It goes back to being a thought leader and just getting ahead in your industry. So with that, I'm going to hide the results of this poll and wrap things up here. Thank you so much for joining in, and I'll turn it over to Kirti now for some closing comments.
Okay, thank you very much, Matthew. On behalf of Zoho and Matthew, thanks to each one of you who has joined us for this webinar. I hope you found it useful and wish all the very best for you in your leadership journey. So don't forget to post your tweets for a chance to win the 16 email templates that you will ever need to hook your customers. And make sure you tag us at Zoho CRM and use the hashtag Smarter Sales Leaders. We'll be available for a few minutes to answer your questions, so please post them in the comment box in your GoToWebinar panel.
Yeah, and we'll take the questions now, guys, and are looking forward to helping out.
Okay, a few questions, Matthew, as in the very first slide, you had actually mentioned about, about the book, name of the book. So can you just repeat that book, name of
Yeah,
the book?
the book was called On Emotional Intelligence by the Harvard Business Review, and it's a really fantastic book on what separates the best leaders from all the other leaders. And oftentimes, that's just understanding your staff and your employees better than anyone else, and understanding how to make them better, how to build them up, and that all goes back to emotional intelligence.
Okay, I think Craig, Matthew has answered your question. And yeah, Saber wants to know about your product, about Map My Customers product. So you can just give them a brief as in what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Map My Customers was built out of the need of my father, actually, who's been an outside sales rep for almost 40 years in the flooring industry. And, essentially what we do is we help enable your outside sales reps. And, if you're a rep alone, it can help you as well. Visualize your territory, know which accounts to stay on top of. It can actually visualize cadences and understand who you need to see and when you need to go see them again, optimize routes, and really just get a better understanding of your territory. We help facilitate, a lot of tools for sales reps out in the field, and have developed a suite of tools, mobile first, just for folks out in the field alone. And it syncs back up to Zoho, which is the fantastic part about it. So you don't have any data islands or anything like that. And we help get more customer visits and really drive more revenue. So again, it's a lot of times just about improving the numbers, and then it's about improving the actual touches that you're doing. So if you want to check us out, we're at mapmycustomers.me, and we've got free trials and all of that. So
Thanks, Matthew. Next question is, you mentioned about the tools which can be used. So Snake doesn't actually want to know about the tools which you mentioned in the webinar.
the different technology tools, is that the question, Kirti?
Just mentioned, can you please repeat the tools? Snake, can you be a little more specific so that Matthew can get that answered? Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. Okay. How does Map My Customers integrate with Zoho?
Yeah, so we integrate by essentially, we integrate in real time in both directions. So if you're adding information to Zoho, it's going to go back into Map My Customers. And anytime you make edits or do activities in the field, say you're checking in an account, which you can do automatically on our platform, or you're adding a reminder or a note to a customer, that's all flowing back in real time to Zoho. So you don't have any data segmentation, and you're keeping everything up to date. So a lot of folks who are on Zoho are using the tool to improve the performance of their reps in the field and actually increase adoption of Zoho and our system. So it's a mutually beneficial thing. And if you've had any issues in the past where reps aren't actually visiting accounts, or you feel like you have very little insight into what your reps are actually doing on a daily basis, I'd recommend at least taking a look at it.
Okay. Next question is from Mark. Can you discuss mapping solutions?
Yeah, I mean, mapping solutions have been around for almost 2 decades now. I actually have a background in GIS myself. There used to be a couple of tools out there called MapPoint and Streets and Trips that Microsoft made in the early 2000s. They've since been discontinued over the past few years, and there are a handful of solutions that are mobile first now for iPhones, Androids, and all the new phones that are out there in the past decade. So we're one of those, obviously. I'm a little biased, obviously, as well, for our own system, but it really helps you ask those sales questions and answer those sales questions very quickly, right? So if you've ever found yourself asking a question like, oh, I wonder, who I could go see this week that I haven't seen in a few months, who could sell this new product to that I could see on a Friday morning and is within 10 minutes of, Chicago, you can ask yourself that question with a mapping platform.
Okay. Next question is, what websites did you mention to check out the competition?
To check out the competition, G2 Crowd and Capterra. Those are the best. And if you do a demo with G2 Crowd, actually, they'll show you a little bit of the inner workings of it as well. It's really quite awesome. It gives you some insights and actually really helps your sales team understand. Okay, if you think you really have this deal in the bag, do you actually, right? And G2 Crowd can help with that.
Okay. Parvesh has asked, spin selling versus selling with stories. Which one is better?
I like spin selling. I mean, we actually use spin selling for our business development team of 6 reps earlier this year, and it's you can't go wrong. I mean, there's no necessarily right way to be selling, but I think it depends on what you're selling, right? So it's if you're selling something that's consumer grade and has a very low price point and doesn't have a lot of doesn't need a lot of decision maker buy-in. You're not dealing with a lot of influencers inside of an organization. Then you can be more transactional, and I think spin selling can work really well. But in the case of today's complex selling world of the bigger enterprise, and even today, decision making is actually moving to more on a department by department basis. I think consultative selling and challenging selling is personally what we do at our own organization, and I think is working really well for us.
Okay. So any more questions? We'll wait for a few more minutes still.
Okay, sounds good. We'll be waiting here, guys, if you have any other questions for the next few minutes.
Yeah. Matthew, you have questions? Few more questions. So one attendee needs to know, how can Map My Customers help me with keeping my reps accountable in the field?
Absolutely. So we actually have a concept called auto check-ins, which means every time your reps go and visit an account out in the field, we know whether or not they're actually at that location, and we automatically check them in with a GPS verified check-in, which means you can go back and look at the accounts they said they visited and verify whether or not that they were actually at those locations. We have a lot of actual bigger companies on our platform using this to weed out the better reps from the not so good reps.
Okay. James wants to know, further define difference between Zoho CRM software and Map My Customers software.
Yeah, Zoho's a fantastic store of business information and can do a whole lot of things. and you really do want that sort of business data, and you can do a whole lot of workflow tools to set up business logic any which way you want it. But Map My Customers is sort of like, if you've heard of tools like Close.io or SalesLoft or Outreach, those are enablement tools for inside sales reps. Map My Customers is sort of what those are, but for outside sales. So the same way that sort of, those tools won't necessarily replace your CRM system, Map My Customers is meant to enable your reps to do a better job of logging activities in the field, and therefore driving more revenue and actually producing results, and you can actually hold them accountable the whole while. So if you're an outside sales rep or an outside sales manager, you can utilize this along with your CRM system to make sure that you can slice and dice reports and get the information you need without any problems at all.
That's nice. So a few questions have come from the attendees. They're interested to know how Map My Customers use Zoho CRM. So it'll be nice if you could just share some tips so that they can get benefit out of it.
Yeah, so I mean, we use Zoho to set up our pipelines, right? So to track to garner inbound leads and have those funnel right into our pipeline for both prospecting and our opportunities pipe, to be able to move those through the different stages and set up the business logic for the customer journey the way we need it to be. So we can easily make a glance at the system and understand what our forecasts are, and really project out what our revenue is going to be for the next quarter or next year. So we use it more on the sales side of things than anything else, and it also helps keep us honest with our sales team and our projections.
Okay. Any other questions? We'll just wait for a minute, Matthew, and then we'll end the webinar.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, we have one more question. I have a problem and large data sets and mapping. What kind of large data sets, or how many points can you map at once with your software?
So we can actually, our system can house almost 1 million records, but we can visualize up to roughly 30,000 at a time right now. And so you can visualize different parts of the data set on a map at a given time, but not more than 30,000 per view, if that makes sense. So you can filter the data and look at different parts of the data. You can have all the data in there, but visualizing it and seeing all of it at once. If you go above tens of thousands of pieces of data, then the whole map is covered and it's not super useful.
Okay. Naveen Kumar wants to know, how do you re-engage with old leads that have not converted in the past?
That's a very good question. We do have sort of marketing campaigns set up, and we actually have sort of educational material that we send out to them, and we try to provide some value, just to touch them and poke them and say, hey, what's up? That doesn't really cut it in 2018. So what we end up doing is actually providing a steady stream of content, spaced fairly far apart, to those leads that did not convert, or the ones that we just do not hear back from, because they can opt out from those emails if they don't want them, for one, and then two, ultimately you are going to win some of that business back.
Next question, how do you guys help with generating new leads?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a built-in lead generator. We're enterprise partners with Google, and we are able to actually provide you data straight from Google to show you new accounts, including address information, phone numbers, websites that you could go target in the field. And that's really helpful if you can imagine you're on a route for an afternoon and you have a couple appointments that are canceled and you need to backfill your time and you need to make sure you're staying productive in the field. You can do that while actually using our lead generation tool and do it in a completely visual manner because you're out in the field and everything you're concerned about is where do I need to go?
Okay. Looks like everyone questions have been answered. Matthew, about this book, I think Anna had again asked, as in what's the name of the book? I think it's an Emotional Intelligence by Harvard Business Review, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay, the name of the book itself is Emotional Intelligence.
Yeah, the name of the book is On Emotional Intelligence.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Matthew. So see you all in the next sales leadership webinar series. So stay tuned. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much for having me. Take care, everybody.